week of preparation. So like I got 2 days off, man. I'm stoked. It's like usually as a, Hunter, as a pro goalie, you don't get Friday. So like, this is my Friday, 2 days off. I'm stoked.
Well, man, I can't tell you how thankful I am that you're willing to do this with us. This is going to be really, really, I think what we're trying to do is just make stuff fun and valuable and actually give some helpful, information and content for young keepers. So thank you for your time. I think you got such a cool story. So we'll get started. Will, you ready to go? We all set?
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
All right, let me get my little thingy up here. All right. Go ahead, count us down.
3, 2.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GK4FREE, the internet's source for the best free, valuable goalkeeping content. And I always say that with a smile because that's our goal. Maybe not where we're at now, but that's where we're trying to go. So I want to thank our sponsor, Aviata Sports, for helping us make this possible. And as always, I'm Hunter Gilstrap, and this is Will Marshall, and we're super, super thankful and fortunate today to be joined by Portland Timbers goalkeeper Steve Clark. Steve, what's going on, man? How are you?
Yeah, very good. By the way, man, I had a young goalkeeper who's I suppose it'd probably be my cousin, but from marriage. But your goalkeeping or goal kick tutorial, like that's like one of the biggest questions people always are like sliding in my DMs, and hey, how do you hit goal kicks? It's a difficult one. So I sent him your tutorial, by the way.
Whoa!
There we go.
Wow! There we
West
go.
Coast.
Making some real valuable content. I don't know, man, but I don't know if it actually is all that valuable. But that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're short, valuable stuff that actually has, because everything we see out there on the internet, it's cool. It's fun to watch. You know what I mean? But it's all in product. It's all guys like you, like all the cool things that you can do. But how'd you get there? You know what I mean? What are the basics? What's all the little stuff you learned along the way to be that end product? And there's not a lot of that out there. And there's a lot of people out there looking for a monthly subscription or download and buy my ebook and all that kind of stuff. And we just kind of don't want to. We want to put the opposite out there. So that's what this is all about. And that's why we're so pumped up that you're here to share a little bit of your story and kind of some of your, stuff that makes you the goalkeeper that you are. I think I sent over and said that I would give a little bit of your background, but then I was like, that's stupid. Why would I do that? Like, if you don't mind, would you give us kind of the, the 5-minute, 10-minute version of kind of your snapshot of your story, kind of going from a youth goalkeeper to where you're at now, and if you want to go into more detail, that's fine. This is your show right now, so just as a place to start. So I think most everybody knows who you are, but just so we have a little bit of background before we get into some of the details.
And it's with technology the way it is these days. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I was like, websites first became a thing, and I was Googling, you Google goalkeeping, and there was one site that basically had pictures. And I just remember like staring at goalkeepers making extension saves. That was all we had, So now with the resources available, like it's pretty cool what you're doing. But my background, okay, so yeah, my name's Steve Clark. I'm a 13, 14-year pro. I went to Oakland University. And my story is basically like, I really wasn't, I didn't kind of step up to like academy or, at that time, like, Vardar and Wolves. It was, I played for Vardar, but I didn't do that till I was 16. So I was a little bit of a late bloomer. And then I walked on to Oakland. I had one offer from Cincinnati, but Oakland was really like a goalkeeper U at that point. And Eric Pogue was kind of like, I just had a real gut feeling at a young age, like, okay, like this is the spot to be there. And Jeff Weesey was kind of the starter there. And it was like, look, I wanted to be him. He was very, very good. And I just was like, look, I'm going to go there. I'm going to learn. So I walked on and redshirted, and then I sat my second year in college too. I sat behind Jeff, and it was really a cool time because like I partnered with him. I was like, basically like, tell me what to do. Like, I'm going to follow this guy. In fact, I modeled my set position after him. Like, I just was like a copycat. And I think that for young goalkeepers, like, modeling yourself after goalkeepers that you can train with is like, and so I did that. I then, before I even played a college game, I won a national championship with the Michigan Bucks. So that was pretty unique. And then I had my and I played Oakland for 3 years. And the challenges didn't stop. You know, I didn't make the MLS Combine, which was really difficult. I didn't get picked up. I went on trial in Norway, didn't get a contract, and then Salt Lake City, Real Salt Lake, back when right before they won the whole, a couple years before they won the whole thing in 2009, I was on trial there for like 6 weeks back when the MLS preseason was very long, and then I didn't get a contract there. I went back to the PDL, backpacked through Europe that December and signed in Norway. Played there for 4 years. You know, won basically like their TV station goalkeeper of the year, best 11. We promoted my first year playing. And then my last year we relegated. I came back to the MLS. I played for Columbus Crew for 3 years, and you know, had a great run to Columbus. We fell short in the final. Then I went to Denmark in 2017 for 6 months, and then I was looking to I wanted to play in mainland Europe. That was my big goal. I played in Scandinavia, so I signed a 6-month deal in Denmark, and I was hoping to go to Germany, and I had all these looks in Belgium, and that was my main goal, and that didn't happen. It's just so difficult for American goalkeepers abroad. And so I went back to DC, and then a year in DC, August to August. Then I've been in Portland, and a great run in Portland. Won the MLS back. We went to the MLS Cup in 2018, and feeling, and more than that, like a student of the game. You know, I love development. I'm somebody who like just loves to get better at things. I'm currently playing a lot of chess, and let me tell you, online chess, the level of online chess is so high. Like constantly, but I'm gonna learn. Like I just like learning. Goalkeeping is, you know, it's just it's an incredible sport. It's a incredible position. You know, it's like so I'm really like a student, and I love that aspect.
Man, that's so cool. You did that way better than I would have been able to do it. I think I had everything in there and I would have mentioned it, but you know, why not hear from you? And what a cool story. You know, Evan Bush is a good buddy of mine, and we did one of these with Evan, you know, in the fall. And, you know, I think your story, Evan's story, they're kind of similar. You know what I mean? You had to really kind of fight and grind and really earn every opportunity that you got. And, you know, he touched on the fact that anymore there's not as many guys out there with that kind of story. And so that was why, you know, I've kind of become a little bit of a Steve Clark fanboy, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But like, that's why I wanted to reach out to you. That's why I wanted you in here to kind of tell your story, because I think that resonates, you know, the kids that I want to connect with, those out there that don't have the huge opportunities, that aren't in the MLS academies, that, you know, aren't youth national team players, because look, awesome for those guys that have earned those opportunities at young age. But just because there's not as many guys around like you and Evan anymore, there's still that path. And I want to continue to try to find a way to light that fire in those guys. And I kind of got dropped into Western Pennsylvania, and when I came here in 2010, and it's kind of this black hole for youth soccer development. And there's so many kids that have talent that kind of get looked over and don't get the opportunity. And so, you know, that's just kind of what we're doing here. So I just want to give a quick sort of anecdotal story about kind of how we met the first time. And I was a little wary to kind of go here, and I want to make sure I ran by you first, because, you know, it's more of a funny story than anything else. But, you know, if anything, I'll kind of preempt it with, I think it really kind of speaks to your, you know, your competitive nature, which is something I want to talk about later, and which is such a huge, you know, important attribute to have if you really want to be successful in sport or in anything. But we ran in together the first time during your time in college, when you were on that super successful Michigan Bucks PDL team. It was just loaded with talent. And like you said, you guys won an MLS or a USL championship, or sorry, a PDL championship. And then I think you guys went on 3 Open Cup, Berlin City Stars, which were a USL minor league team in Cleveland. And so we had to go play you guys in the Open Cup. And for those out there that don't know what the Open Cup is, it's the one tournament in U.S. soccer where teams from every level get a chance to make it to play the MLS teams at the end of the tournament, to kind of see who's really the best team in the country, whatever. So we're going in to play a college team. Michigan Bucks are a little bit unique. Probably, what would you say the makeup was? Probably like 75-25 college guys, and then it's kind of handful of
like
pros, more or less.
Yeah, really good. And we were, we were quite a good team.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I want to preface too is like one of the reasons why like when I wonder if we'll talk about that. You brought it up because Hunter, like being just from knowing you from afar is like character building and like not only goalkeeping but who you are as a person. And I think that's so important in youth development. And this story is I think it's not necessarily a goalkeeping story, but it's a character and humility story for my sake. So do you mind if I just tell it?
Man,
Or
yeah, go for it. You go for it. Yeah, I'd love to hear it for you.
really glad to tell it. I'm really glad to tell it, even though it's not a great look for me. But so we play in the Oakland Cup, and I believe we ended up beating
No, I
you
think we
guys,
won.
correct?
Or actually, I don't remember. Maybe you did beat us because I don't remember any Open Cup games after that last year. So I guess you guys did beat us.
Or whatever.
I don't
But
remember
anyways, a player on your team wound me up and little trash talking, and then we were going through the handshake line, and I took that out on you, and I said some unfortunate things, and and from a goalkeeping standpoint.
Well, no. Let me interrupt too because I think we did win because we played Chicago after that and got smoked.
Okay.
But I gave up. I think I gave up a goal that was like, viewed as a goalkeeping error. I got a back pass and had no composure with the ball at my feet. Old school generation goalkeeper,
Sure.
in danger, clear, and bouncy bad back pass getting run down by the big. I think Kenny was his name.
Yeah.
So I just smashed as hard as I could right into him, and he runs it in for a tap in. So I think there was some context there, right? But that was kind of what you brought back up and mentioned. And
Right, and that's correct, and that's a really crappy thing to do, and it's something my story as well. Like when I talk about goalkeeping development, like my competitiveness would go over to the red line often. I was a temperamental guy, and I thought being competitive meant the extra onto that, which I've had to unlearn. And there's something to be said about passion. There's something to be said about competitiveness, but I let that go into an area for me. And then even further on in my career, like that poked its head out a few times. So it's like, I'm glad that is not the case anymore. And I'm certainly not that type of person. And then, you came to train in 2016 with the Columbus Crew.
Yeah, that was the last year I played my old man days.
I'm so glad to see you because then I just immediately the first what happened in 2007. This was 9 years later. I hadn't forgotten. I just said, look, I'm really sorry. That's not who I am anymore. It's not something that I'm about, and I haven't forgotten. I'm really glad that I take the opportunity to apologize.
And man, I can't tell you how that resonated with me, because after that incident or whatever, I was a young guy too, but at the same time, like I was like, whatever, like I get it, like it's the heat of the moment. So it wasn't that I was, I don't like Steve Clark, but I was a little bit like, oh, that guy, you know what I mean? And then, but because of that, you were on my radar, like, and I really followed what you were doing, and I had gone on a trial run in Norway, and I guess after that season, after that '08 season, and so then when I kind of saw that you'd gone over there and you'd gotten picked up by a team that I actually went on trial with, Hennefus, I paid even more attention, and seeing you kind of go kill it over there and really make a name yourself, and then knock on an MLS doors again and get over here and really have start to really perform and establish yourself as a top goalkeeper in the United States, right? It was only that then when you had that moment on that day of being like, hey man, that wasn't cool to me, like that resonated with me, and I was like, this guy is the real deal. And at that moment I just became a super Steve Clark fan, and ever since I've been like, that'll get into what we talk about next, but like there's a handful of guys that, like, when I'm working with youth kids, I'm like, you need to pay attention to this guy, you need to watch him, you need to watch how he does this and that. And so I've got a few things, and most of it is their approach to the game, and it's the way that they play more than what they do. Do you know what I mean? And so that's just, not too much here or there, but kind of wanted to give that little context and backstory. And again, just super thankful for you to come here and even be willing to share that. I think that just speaks to your character and kind of what you're all about.
Well, definitely. And look, I'm not, when you talk about players who, kind of are like me and they have, and you probably coach some guys who like, they tend to be aggressive. Like I'm a naturally an aggressive person. That's a really positive thing. And, you know, as men and certainly someone who's, faithful, trying to live a Christian life, like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to grow. And I'm glad to share that publicly and say that, like, look, bettering yourself is part of being a good goalkeeper, in my opinion. You can't really separate,
Yeah. Yeah, Willie, I know that I didn't tell you that story. I told you we were going to talk about something. Or was that better or worse than what you were expecting?
I don't know. I think it was on par. I mean, I knew there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows what to expect? But no. I mean, it's a good story. I mean, like, that stuff happens. But I mean, like you said, I mean, heat of the moment in competition, level of intensity, like.
Yeah, we've all been there. And everyone can connect and relate to that.
Yeah.
We haven't really done intros necessarily, but Will, this is Steve. Will's a kid that kid's not fair. He's a grown man now, but I've worked with him since he was
adult,
youth goalkeeper, and then through his college career, and now he's here in town coaching with us in Pittsburgh, and he's going to actually be working with the pro team goalkeepers here with the Riverhounds this year.
Is the announcement?
I should have done. Yeah, well, we'll see how many people pay attention to this, but
yeah.
If they did, they earned the fact to hear that. But
yeah, true.
So, Steve, the biggest thing that I kind of want to talk about from a technical, we always try to have like one sort of technical piece, you know what I mean, kind of about the position that actually is going to give some good quality information to these young keepers. And I'm sure you've noticed, just like everyone else, like especially Instagram, it's full of all these goalkeeping clips, and there's been this big style shift towards, big extended blocking shapes. And I've been kind of not publicly, because who knows how many people pay attention, but openly in our little audience, kind of critical to the way a lot of goalkeepers approach that. And it's something that I used as a player, and I think can be a really valuable tool, but I honestly think there's very few that use it in a really effective way. And oftentimes they'll give themselves up too early. They'll go into that spread shape where there's still a lot of distance between them and the attacker, and they won't give themselves a chance to be, a goalkeeper. So, I think you're just like a couple things here with this that you are just so effective with is, one, your flexibility. You've obviously taken a ton of time off the field to become super flexible, so that you don't leave spaces where most goalkeepers leave spaces when they go into this shape. And specifically, I mean, like between your feet, through your legs, right? You do a fantastic job taking that space away. Plus you're able to spread yourself extra wide. And then, the timing aspect of it. So I think what I'd love to hear, and what would be super helpful for our audience, is just, not even just specific to blocking shapes, but just kind of what's your approach to 1v1 play, or your personal, I don't know if you want to call it a philosophy, and then kind of what are some cues you look for and that sort of guide your decision making in those moments.
Yeah, I saw that little bit of discussion you had. I'll send you a clip, because like I do like a really non-traditional one a lot now, where it's like a hockey knee save, like a sliding knee save, and it's like sometimes you don't have enough time to get even the knee down for the blocking save that I think about. So for me, 1v1 in that, I've heard it called the starfish or the spider. I mean, sometimes I call it the spider save. It's timing, it's complete timing. And the best one I ever made was in Toronto in 2016. Like I probably, I had the timing so well, I probably jumped 5 yards. Your timing's right, but when you see guys get beat with that, their timing's very poor, and I think we've all gone in every goalkeeper would probably be guilty of just being in a 1v1 situation, and you're kind of panic and you end up going too early and you make it easy. But I think there's a lot of drills that you can do that are just timing based, and timing is, probably the least talked about thing for goalkeeping development, and it's probably the most important thing with crossing your set position.
Set timing for sure.
I mean, timing is really everything. I spent a lot of time when I was early in my career, when I went to Norway, specifically probably the first 2 years, it was more prevalent over there. Like that was kind of a big save. I didn't have it. And I just kind of like became obsessed, and it started where I wasn't kicking out into the splits because I didn't have the timing yet. I was kind of doing like a half one with my chest out.
Yeah.
And it eventually just clicked where it became kind of a staple of my game where I'm just doing this, this sprawl save. And I think when I first got in MLS, I don't think there was anybody really doing it. And I started kind of doing that more typical European save. And now it's like funny, last year, for whatever reason, maybe my timing was a little off. Maybe the guys were so good in 1-1, I didn't do one.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think there's times where you get connected in and somebody makes that touch and there's the distance and you just go.
Yeah.
And then there's other times where I try not to go down early. So there's some times where maybe I could have and I would have made the save anyways, but I stay up, and there wasn't opportunities there wasn't that time to make myself into that save.
Yeah. So would you say that, we're sort of the traditional approach is maybe, big touch, right? Preparing to shoot. You'll still, would you opt to stay up and spread or go down and get your hands on the ball kind of sideways? Are you one or the other, or is it situational still?
Well, I think that the one thing, if it's that bad of touch, I'm going to go with my hands, but that probably happens more in youth soccer than the pro. So number one, but then if I'm even a little later and I can get down into the sprawl, I'm going to do the sprawl, and that's basically like the same time. You do it at the same time. And then if there's even the worst step back where you can't, then I'm going to probably do this like knee slide save that I'll send you a video. And if there's into that, then I don't have time for that. Then I'm going to stand up and just make myself big.
Yeah.
So that's probably the progression for me.
That's helpful. So you already kind of talked about, you see the biggest error, and keepers that aren't effective with this is typically their timing.
Yeah.
If you had, a young guy coming in to train with you guys that was really struggling with that, and like you were going to give him a tip, kind of put your arm around, how would you communicate that with him, in a moment, maybe try this, maybe try that, like?
Well, I think that the first thing would be like, look, it's going to take time, like the more reps, the better it's going to, that's always like, I remember hearing that as a younger goalie and being like, dude, that's not helping me, like I want the answer now, but that's kind of the answer. It's like, the more you do it, being like, okay, is the ball, is the ball on his foot? And if it's even on his foot, can he shoot? Because if I know now, if the ball's not in an area where a guy, unless he's going to flick it with the outside of his foot, which is really rare in the heat of the game, I'm going to still come forward, So there's all these nuanced details that you can go over, like, okay, when is it safe to close ground and when is it not?
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm a big proponent of is being smart. If you show me the smartest goalkeeper, you're probably going to show me like one of the better goalkeepers, and that's not to the case. There are some guys who just like don't think the game and they're just naturally good. That's not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss, and maybe with the pressure, but for me, I try to be the smartest player on the field. That's a big goal of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking for opportunities when you can steal ground, when you can almost surprise the attacker, and if not, trying to stay balanced and give yourself best chance to react.
In following this discussion as well, it's like, where's your center back? How much is he closing? Is he closing? Because if he's closing, maybe it's better not even to come out and make the guy shoot from the 18. I mean, how many times do we see a goalkeeper come out and they don't need to? They could make the save if they're on their line. Those type of decisions are so important. I think there was one against Barco against Atlanta United in 2019 where I timed him really well. It looked like a difficult one, the save you're talking about, but it wasn't difficult because I had people closing and his touch was only, he had one shot to shoot and I was there.
Right. Yeah.
All these things that, it becomes complicated, but it can be a discussion of like, all right, cool. Like, this is the clip. This is the involvement. Where was the center back? Where's the pressure? What was your decision? And then working from there.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's good. Will, do you have anything specific to that?
For me, like, I think, my later years at Pitt, we were kind of instructed as keepers to start thinking about the game that way. And that was something that I had never run into in my youth career at all. And even in the first 2 years of college. And then, now, just from a coaching perspective, I mean, it's something that once it kind of was introduced to me, it's something I'm looking at all the time. You know, like those little cues as to, you know, is there pressure here? Do I need to go, or can I stay deep, or, whatever. And there's so many of them. And it's just a matter of just continually watching those little details.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man, that's good. And the biggest thing that the biggest problem from a youth development perspective, I think that we continually run into is, when can we get our players smart enough to kind of look to solve problems, and that's kind of a hard thing to teach. And we've kind of been trying to spitball ideas and come up with sort of a framework for teaching that. But I think you've kind of hit on, the important piece to this, which is the reps, the experience. So that's great, man. That's super helpful. Let's transition into, we talked about a little bit before, your competitiveness, because I think I think that's, you can feel that. I was, always felt like I was kind of an emotional player to a fault. You know what I mean? I got too up and only kind of figured out towards the last 2 years of my career that I was much better heading into a game if I kind of had calmed myself down and all of my prep to the game, and my warm up was calming and kind of bringing myself back down, because I would naturally hype up so much that if I hyped up before and the whistle was blowing, then I'm just that much more hyped, which probably means I'm less close to the headspace I want to be in, and especially in stressful moments. So Will, why don't you kind of take it from here for this one?
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of already touched on your competitive edge and the intensity that you bring. What would you attribute that to? Like, I mean, is that something that you've always had, or are there some events, I don't know, maybe as you've played as a keeper, that you can kind of, I don't know, certain catalysts for that factor that you bring?
Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, I would echo what, Hunter said, as far as, I've calmed more, I'm, more successful in my elder years being calm. But when I was younger, I don't have a high attention span. but I have a very powerful brain that can focus in certain moments. But when I was younger, I mean, it became very clear that I would make a great save, and then 2 minutes later, I would be looking in the stands. Goalkeeping is a real journey of the mind. And so one way through that was just to be extremely intense all the time. And it became that I equated success with that type of intensity, because you can get results that way, and also I had a goalkeeper trainer at Hope College do a camp, and he was very good, and he kind of was like, look, this is the way I've done it. And the pressure training aspect, I really bought into that, and it became, every training was a serious affair. And I think that there's something to be said about that. And I don't know. I've heard that the youth game is getting less and less competitive, and I don't work in youth sports anymore, but that's disappointing. If anything, we may not have been the most technically and advanced group of guys, but we were ready to fight we were ready to play. We wanted to bring, intensity at a young age to the game. And I think you can't really play soccer, in my opinion, without that on match day, at least.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, that we struggle with that with our youth keepers in our academy every day. Like, how do we create in them this intensity, this competitive edge? And you can make the drills competitive, but it is a different time, and I don't have an answer for that necessarily.
Yeah.
So let's do. This is specific to you, Steve. Specific to your experience. I know I've grown to know your college coach, Eric Pogue, a little bit over the last 5 or 6 years, and
Sure.
he has developed a real reputation for developing goalkeepers there at Oakland. Kind of what's the secret sauce? What's the magic? What's in the water there in Oakland?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, really, you'd have to say I think first and foremost, he has a good eye to pick a good goalkeeper. I wasn't very highly recruited at all, and then I think once you set a culture, that culture starts perpetuating. It becomes its own machine. After Mitch Hildebrandt, myself, Sean Lewis, and then Jeff Weesey, these are Jeff was very good. And even guys who didn't even play were incredible. That's the thing, there was good goalkeepers who didn't play. that Eric Pogue's idea about goalkeeping was really footwork based.
Yeah.
And it really, I think it was super important for my style of goalkeeping. You know, I'm about 6'1", 6.5". Like, so being fast in for goalkeepers, and we did a lot of that. And it was like, we all took to that type of training. He did a really good job, I think, of finding the mentality of goalkeeper that he wanted to mold. Guys who, like myself, like Mitch, and Sean, Sean's calmer than all of us. You know, Sean Lewis at Tulsa's a little bit a little bit calmer, but he still has it. Like, he did a really good job of that, and he deserves credit. And you know, we're really close. He's like probably one of my closest friends now. So, you know, I'm really grateful for him. And, you know, and now he was a head coach. So I think he's finding his way back into doing the goalkeeping again.
Yeah.
And you know that I'm really stoked for him. So
That's cool, man. That's awesome. And you know, I've had a handful of interactions with him over the last few years, and he seems like really good guy, really a guy that's always got time for you. It's always going to remember you, and you know, remember that last conversation you had, and always interested. You know what I mean? Always interested in what you're doing next, and you know, can't say enough.
Steve, what would you say is the hardest thing about being a number one?
Oh man, there's a lot of hard things. You know, gosh, you know, I mean, look, you just, I mean, this is a simple answer, but it's the truth. You know, you just have to perform. You know, the most important day of the week is game day. That's another thing. There's, you know, I used to train like every day was a, you know, the MLS Cup, and now I just put all the ingredients in the soil to make a good, you know, produce a good fruit on match day, you know, and the most important time is the 90 minutes of the game, you know. And you know, I think in youth sports it's a little different because you're trying to teach training habits, and you know, the transition to being a pro is like, look, like, I'm paid to play on match day, and I need to do everything in the week to perform those 90 minutes. And I mean, everything. And so you just got to bring it I mean, as a number one, and I'm, you know, it's been this way for me. I've been lucky to play a lot in my career that, you know, people want your job. It's just a reality, you know? And then once you make more money, the club wants, you know, to bring in a young guy. And there's always guys coming, you know, there's always the competition battles. So the pressure to perform is there, and you kind of are sink or swim with that, sink or swim. And, you know, I've been lucky to be able to handle that and do quite well.
Yeah, I think there's also something we always talk about here with some of the other guys that, you know, played here with the club Pittsburgh Riverhounds in town, and then are now in the youth system. You know, there's a lot of good number twos. You know what I mean? And a lot of number twos out there that can bring it and be really good in training every single day, but you know, and they want to be number one, right, until they get that opportunity, right, and then it's a whole different ball game. So maybe kind of spinning off that, like, if you're a guy who has gotten to a good level, maybe it's college, maybe it's pro, and you're a number two, right, and you're eager for that job, there's nothing you can really do to prepare yourself for what it's actually like to be the number one, to be that guy that's being relied on. What would you say is sort of that? Is there anything that can prepare the guy? Anything that he can keep in mind, or she can keep in mind, that she's sort of working towards that goal?
It's a great question, and you know, I think that being a number two is very mentally difficult for people's confidence. And so I mean, I think that, you know, when I wasn't playing in DC and Portland for a little while, like, in my mind, it was just a matter of time. You know, there was no, you know, and I think that you come up, well, what if the coach doesn't play me? Like, I had to accept, like, yeah, maybe this is, my chance is not going to come, but if it does come, that's it. You know, that's it. Yeah. So when I was in that situation, you have to almost become obsessed with the fact that when it's your time, I'm going to succeed, you know. And to piggyback off the question of competitiveness, you know, there's people that misunderstand competitiveness. There's a lot of people that see somebody, if they miss a golf shot, they throw a golf club, or that, you know, they lose in ping pong or something and they're getting upset. Okay, yeah, all right, maybe you're competitive, maybe you're not. When we talk about competitiveness, I don't want to see it on a Tuesday in 5v5. Yeah, maybe you're competitive, you want to win in training, but what are you doing when you know, on match day or in the playoffs? Like, and for me, it's been super important to me that I almost crave it in a way where like, I want to figure out if I'm better than this guy. Like, and I think maybe I want to find out, like, I want to know, like, training with, the best in the country, for me, if it was an individual sport, like, I would be like, let's go tomorrow,
Yeah.
or the day after that. I want to know, let's go, so that to me is when you're a number two, to keep that mentality, but also supporting the team, I think is important.
Yeah. And that's a fine line to walk, that being a good teammate, being even supportive of other goalkeeper. Like in college and before that, I feel like I didn't have the best relationship with the other goalkeepers. So competitive, and almost I felt like kind of, like we were kind of pitted against each other by the staff to who's dog in the fight, who's going to win. And that really worked well to push me to get to a new level, but didn't work for the relationships I had with those guys. And, have sort of patched that up a little bit now that we're all adults, but completely different than the guys I played with, at the pro level. I think maybe it's just a maturity thing. Maybe it's, something about to a certain level, and then you're just kind of able to have a little more respect for, the guy ahead of you or the guy behind you. But, that it's such and I think a big theme with all this stuff is this emotional maturity required if you really want to be able to succeed at this position, right? Because there's, we can do 10 podcasts on all the ways this position is going to affect you emotionally. And, at the end of the day, we do need each other as well. And, finding a way to be able to push the guy next to you that you're working with every day, and maybe flirt with that line or cross that line from time to time of what's appropriate or not, but also being able to be there and support him and the rest of your teammates is really hard. That's hard to do. And there's a reason that some are able to do it and some aren't.
It is very hard. There's nothing really, it is difficult. And, it's a great catalyst for personal growth if you can face it, face these type of things with character and humility. Like, goalkeeping is a beautiful position to play for any young person. It's just a character building machine. And, or, you can probably turn out to be a real dickhead, I'm sure. I hope to have gone the route of compassion and character. So.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I feel like I've dealt with less dickheads down the road than I did earlier on. The dickheads don't seem to make it quite as far. They either get to the very top or they don't make it at all.
Well said.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're kind of getting. Will, you can spitball one if there's anything else popping in your head, but I want to make sure we talk about this last one because it's super relevant to our our audience and the kids we work with in our academy. And we actually have a goalkeeper in our academy who moved to Pittsburgh from Portland for his senior year of high school. Poor kid. And it came into our academy. And obviously his favorite goalkeeper is Steve Clark. So when I told him that we were going to do this, he got really excited about it. And I said, all right, well, Luca, if you could pick kind of one thing that you wanted to ask Steve, what would that be? And he said, he's a senior in high school, and I think he'll have some good opportunities to play at a good level in college and maybe beyond. I don't know. But he really wanted to know kind of what's the biggest adjustment you had to make from high school to college. And then after that, talk about the same thing when going from college to the pros.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that when I look at my journey from the high school to college and college to pros, both of them were just big jumps for me. I just wasn't ready. I just was not ready at either one. So it's difficult to pinpoint one aspect, but the way I want to answer this question is that, like, I think that it's very important if, we don't get a lot of things to really commit to or be great at, and life is short. It's like, what do we want to do? And like, I would ask, what's his name again?
Luca. I
would say, Luca, like, if you're going to try to be a goalkeeper, like, why not do it to the best of your ability, to the point where, like, I don't want to use the word obsessed or unhealthy, but this is everything that you're doing. You're doing everything you can. When I literally, my life revolved around waking up and trying to get better as a goalkeeper for 20 years. And I don't say that lightly. I say that, like, seriously. I sacrificed trips, and have I gotten better? Should I watch film? And it wasn't that it was something that was hard for me to do. It was just a way of living, and like, that's the only reason I'm 34 and getting better. I'm still waking up it's just a way of being. And I would say that, like, what is that what Luka you want to be? Like, you can do that. That's in your area of control, we don't have a lot of control in life. You know, if you really come down to what are you controlling? And I just chose to live my life in a way. It's like, look, like tomorrow I get a day off, Sunday I get off, but Monday I'm going back. And how can I get better? You know, what is it? What aspect? And that's what I do.
Oh, baby. That's
Will's getting pumped up.
yeah.
Will, if you have something to ask, you can ask. I have, I think I have one real specific one that I want to ask. It just popped in my head, and then I'll let Will kind of wrap us up here.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Whatever yours is.
How many times, Steve, long did somebody say no? Did somebody close the door in your face, right? You know what I mean? Like, how many times?
Man, I mean, I don't have a number, I don't have a number,
Yeah.
And that's it's such a great question. And look, my wife and I talk about this a lot. The capacity for being disappointed has to be huge. When you're going about a task, you have to have the capacity to be disappointed. It's like, I can take a deep blow to my career, and I've taken them. If you follow me, the MLS Cup in 2015 was just super difficult mistake I made. I didn't get recruited by Michigan State. That's still to this day, like, I just want to destroy Michigan State soccer. It's like, I'll never forgive them or forget that. That's just the reality. It's just, I'll never forget that, or forgive them for not recruiting me. And that ability to say, okay, look, I may not be where I want to be today, but I'm going to be there down the line is just so important. Like, when you're like, hey, Steve, are you going to be the number one on the national team at 34 right now? People would look at me like crazy. No, I'm not today, but do I have a chance in 6 months? Yes. Do I even have a better chance in 6 more months? Yes. Am I running out of time? Yes. But there doesn't mean, in my mind, there's still an opportunity here,
Absolutely.
And I have the capacity, if I never reach those goals, to be like, look, I fell short of what I think I was ultimately capable of doing, but I did a pretty good job anyways.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That resonates so much with me. It's easy. I knocked on that MLS door a few times. You know what I mean? I had my stint with Toronto in a preseason camp in 2010, and it didn't happen. And I always thought that it was going to. If you'd asked me when I was playing, I could look you in the eyes and say, I'm 100% sure that I'm going to be a starting MLS goalkeeper. And I'm 100% sure after that I'm going to get into the national team camp. It didn't happen. I don't have a regret that it didn't happen, because I knew that every day that I was playing, I was pouring everything that I could control into trying to make that happen. So there's nothing to be afraid of in that sort of pursuit. There's nothing to fear. You know what I mean? The failure just becomes catalyst.
I think that's so wise, and it's so valuable, because in the end, the journey of that, and it's almost cliche, the journey, I want to be this, I want to be that, but that you get so much wisdom and value from that. And even when you want to talk about struggle, like, I've struggled in my game to develop in certain areas. I don't want to really get into details, but I've struggled deeply in some parts of my game. And, there's years of work that's gone into this stuff. But what I got from that struggle is that I have a knowledge of goalkeeping technical ability that I think is just extremely high, because I had to take apart my game and I had to put it back together. And, when you're talking about coaching young kids and you didn't reach that goal, well, you probably know your game a lot better than if you would have just had streamlined success in goalkeeping. And so there's always life, I think, that's like an iceberg where you see the little tip, and there's all this stuff underneath that's so much more wisdom and value that I believe we don't really understand, that's so important that you get from attempting a goal, and you talk about the youth today. It's like, people don't want to put themselves out there because of Instagram, and it's a real world of, I think putting yourself out there is not what it used to be. And I hope the kids do that. I put myself out there all the time, all the time.
Yeah. Will, what you got? Anything else for Steve?
No, I don't have anything. I thought all that was great. Awesome insight. You had me ready to run through a wall there for a second. Because that's stuff that I think about all the time, and like talking about the journey and the struggle, and regardless of what path you're on, be it as an MLS keeper or as someone who's in business or whatever, in life, like, it's all across the board the same stuff. It's just you apply it in different ways. And so no, it's super cool to hear.
Yeah, I love keeping Will around. Like, obviously he knows the inside of my brain, you know, probably similar way you feel about like coaches you worked with for a long time, or he, you know, I know that he can go out and recreate a session and get the objectives accomplished I want. Maybe if he doesn't do it the way that I do it, but I really like keeping Will around because, you know, he represents this, you know, and I hate to always go here with Will because like, I don't want to be like, Will, you represent all the short goalkeepers in the world, but you know,
I mean,
Will, how tall are you? I do this every time.
Well,
and he's probably gonna start hating me for it.
I'm 5'7"3/4" to be specific.
Yeah, and overcame so many obstacles and barriers. You know what I mean? It had to be so much better at everything else because of that to get to the place that he got to in his career. Like,
Sure.
And that's what I want this to be all about.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, and you definitely will with that. You know, the shorter goalkeeper and like having to fight not only that, but how people perceive you. You know, it's like fighting coaches' perceptions of it. Going, oh, I want a guy that's bigger. It only gets worse in the pros. You know, so
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm considered short. I'm like 6. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not big. I'm just smaller. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Steve, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. How much I think a lot of kids are going to be able to take away from hearing, you know, you share your story with us. Means a lot to me personally. I also want to thank you just on a very personal level. You know, we were going through adoption. You know, you shared some of our story, and you even you know, donated and helped us with that. So I can't tell you how much my wife and I are thankful that you participated in our story of being able to grow our family. Like, I mean, that again, we told the story before that shows your character, and then that, like, I think you're awesome, man. And I don't know you personally, but you know, I'm super thankful for the small exchanges that we've had, and for you being willing to, you know, invest back into some kids and developing and sharing it with us.
I had such a great time, you know. So, you know, tag me, you know, send this along. I'll promote it, and we'll, you know, hopefully get some, you know, listens and views for the kids. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.